folks. Hopefully you can hear me. Okay. How's it going? Right, we're just have to do a couple of checks and then we can start off today. Okay, so I have a couple of questions for today already submitted from our own members, and I'm going to cover those questions first, and then I'm actually going to split it up into 5 different sections, because there's a couple of different things that I want to talk about within that section. So I'm just going to test if you can hear me. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Right. The first one is the question is, how would you suggest I become more social and find or reignite old talents or interests overnight? Because the way I'm thinking is becoming clean overnight is the only option. It's one decision, like you say, just don't drink, and that's the easy part. But I've been progressively more antisocial over the 10 years and have no interest in anything I don't know how to switch things back on. That's the first one. And the second one is, it's been 6 months alcohol free for me now. Physically I feel good, mentally I don't. I have a lot of cognitive dysfunction, confusion, memory problems, anxiety. I wake up pretty much every day like this. There's different things that's going on, but this guy was asking about whether this is going through pause. I'd love to hear what I have to say on the matter. Okay. Really, like I said, I'm going to break these down into a few different questions. I think a few different topics. The first one is, can you become alcohol free overnight? You know, we've sort of covered this a lot in the sense of you are what you the only thing that you have to really do is to stop drinking alcohol, and that's the only thing that you need to focus on in the beginning. By the way, the live chat is open to everyone, to all members. There's a join button down below if you want to ask any questions live, and there's different perks depending on what level you choose. So it all helps us to go towards putting these shows on. Okay, so that first one of, can you become alcohol free overnight? The simple answer is yes, and it is from that simple perspective of all you have to do is not put the alcohol into your mouth. So there's nothing complicated about it, you know. And it's, you know, I get so many comments about this, that it's not that simple, it's not this simple, it's much more complicated than that. And I don't understand why people have a problem with this, you know, why it's hard to see this. That, you know, I could tell, I've got a 6-year-old niece, and I could tell her this, that this is what you do. You don't put this into your mouth, and do you understand that? And she'd say, yeah. It's a very simple thing. What people are doing is they're confusing 2 different things. They're confusing the alcohol and the ongoing alcohol into the system and the habit, and they're 2 completely different things, right? People focus, or they have been focused on the, hold on one second. Yeah, people have been focused on the long-term. I'm just going to put this down here. A bit disorganized today. People have been focused on the long-term alcohol, the long-term problem of alcohol. And every thought that we have depends on, you know, when you're thinking about this from the perspective of quitting drinking, when you're thinking about becoming somebody different, which is what the ultimate goal is, I think for most people, they don't think about it that way. They look at it like they want to get alcohol out of their lives, and once they do that, then the problem is gone. And the problem of alcohol is gone, but the problems that have been caused by the alcohol, the physical problems are probably going to die away. That's there's an issue of you stop the alcohol and then things will slowly get better in a certain sense, but in another way they won't, because you've got to work on this, from a different perspective, if you get what I mean. We're fed a line from society, from certain members of society, but you have to think that every thought that you have is dependent not only on the selection of that thought within your head, but the interpretation as well, right? So within your interpretations, there are different meanings. What I mean by a certain way of speaking is not going to be the same thing as what you mean. My interpretations are going to be different. My assumptions are going to be different. What I assume is going to happen as a result of what I do now, it could be very similar, but they're going to be different. The same thing with your expectations, same thing with your value judgments. And this goes for everyone. It's not just you or I, it's everybody. It's the people who are stopping drinking alcohol, the people who are creating, who are making the alcohol, the people who are the doctors and the nurses and the professors and judges and everybody. These are basic rules of thinking. So there are just way too many ideas out there in order for us to understand things completely. So what we do is we look for shortcuts, and we look for ways that we can expedite the process of understanding. And we also have biases, right? The way that we want to see the world, the way that we wish the world would be. And if somebody tells you a certain thing and it matches one of your biases, if it matches the way that you want the world to be, then you're going to accept that much more readily than if it goes against your biases. Do you get what I mean? So this is the problem with, when people... look, behavior changes is a tough thing to do. It's separate the two things out. Stop drinking alcohol. Don't put the alcohol into your mouth. That's one thing, right? And once you've done that, you've achieved that goal of stopping drinking alcohol. It is what it says on the tin. But to get to the stage where you don't want to drink again, where you're changing your life to an extent that you're never going to drink again, that's a different kettle of fish. That's behavior change, and that's the tough part. It takes a lot of thinking, it takes a lot of doing, and this thinking and doing requires a lot of energy above and beyond what you would normally expend. Think about this. If you've ever tried to lose weight, or if you've ever tried to gain weight, it's the same basic principle of basal metabolism. So everyone's got a certain amount of calories that they need in their body in order to function, just to not do anything else but live, breathe, get up and walk about, go to the jacks, go to the kitchen, cook some food, all those kind of things. That's your basal metabolism. And then what you add on top of that, going out for a run, going to work, going to the gym, these are all extra calories that you need. This is extra energy that you're burning. And it's exactly the same thing here. You've got a consistent energy that you need to get you through the day. This is what habits are. They're designed so that you don't have to think, you don't have to expend the energy on thinking about the habit. You just do it. It becomes a part of your process, your everyday process, right? And it's so when you change, you need more energy. Behavior change is not only tough, it's complicated. Behavior change can involve failure, and it often involves failure. It involves not necessarily going back to drinking alcohol again. I'm not talking about that kind of failure, but it involves a certain amount of failure as you're moving forwards. But that's how we learn. You fail, you think about it, you reiterate things, and you try things again. And some people can, when you're coming off a habit like drinking, it can make you very tender, very sensitive, I should say, that kind of thing, with low self-esteem, low self-confidence. And it's easy to convince somebody in that state of mind, that it's not them, that it's the alcohol that's the problem, and that it's the alcohol that's the problem all the way through. Because then it's it's an easy state to say, well, like, what's the point in doing the work? I don't need to do it. All I have to do is sit back and just say, well, yeah, this is me. I'm an alcoholic. But it's a cop out. It's like blaming your mother for your shortcomings throughout your life. Do you get what I mean? There's a lot of people who go back to their childhood and they say, well, it was the way that I was brought up, or it was the way that I was taught. Blaming things that happened 2 years ago or 500 years ago. When I was in Ireland, growing up in Ireland, there was a lot of people who blamed their own difficulties on things that had happened 400 or 500 years ago, and there's people nowadays that are doing it. Have a look around you, and you'll see it everywhere. It's deflecting away from the real problems, because they can't deal with the real problems. They don't have the abilities to deal with the real problems. But this is all about, again, going against choices and trade-offs. If you choose to go down that road, and I'm not saying that, some people, they choose to go down that road because they don't know any other way, and that's the difficulties. They don't know how to take that next step, right? And hopefully these videos are going to help you to take that next step up, because it's only through this kind of stuff. It's only through working your way through your own problems, first sort of saying, well, I've got these problems, and then saying to yourself, I can do this, slowly but surely, but I can do this. But that's the first part anyway. Can you become alcohol free overnight? And the answer to that is a big yes. Right? You just stop drinking alcohol. That's it. You're alcohol free overnight, as long as you don't drink again. Right? The next one is how to reignite old passions or interests quickly after alcohol. This is one of the questions that this guy answered or asked. And again, not a simple answer to this one, and it's probably not going to like it. If you think that you can do this, I don't think you can. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. I think one of the biggest reasons is that your life has moved on, regardless of what you do. I mean, I was drinking for over 30 years, so even to think about reigniting old passions or interests, never going to happen, you know what I mean? There's so much about your life which changes. So much about your life that changes in a year, never mind in 10 years. By the way, if you can hear a fan here, it's because it's roasting hot. And I'm sorry about it. I mean, I really do want to have the fan a lot higher than it is, but I know there's going to be a lot of sound there, so hopefully you can't hear it too much. Life just moves on. I mean, and some of the things that you used to do, it's very difficult to go back. Your thinking has changed. A lot of you thinking about the general thinking has changed. And think about what that means for everything in your life. The context that you live your life has changed. Probably I mean, I don't know how many moves I've made to different countries and different towns and cities, and it's just not the same person. So just the way you view things, the way you view yourself, the way other people view you, imagine how that has changed over the years. Do you get what I mean? So the way you view other people, that's changed. The way you view other people's behavior. I remember I had a friend of mine years ago, and we were talking about this a couple of days ago, and he was my best mate in school. We did everything together, and I met him probably about 10 years after I'd left. We moved away from Ireland. I went back to the UK with my brother, met my partner, then my wife, then and Sean's mother, and Sean came along, and then we sort of, this guy got in contact with me just out of the blue one day and met up with him, and I remember the guy hadn't changed at all, and it was such a put off. He seemed more childish, sort of. I'd grown up a little bit, and I'd done all these things. He had 2 kids as well, so it was that's what amazed me. He was still trying to do the same things. He wasn't happy in his life, but it's amazing how your view of just other things, other people, other behaviors, what other people think, how that can change. It can either mature or I can't say that over 30 years of drinking that I matured in some areas. In some areas I did, because you have to. You've got a kid to look after, you've got a family to look after, all those kind of things necessitates you getting out there and doing different things and being an adult in certain ways. But then you've got the other side of it, like the Jekyll and Hyde side. But like I said in the last one, it all takes hard work. On the other side of stopping the drinking alcohol, provides that base that you're going to work from. If you can't do that, then you're always going to have this liquid base. It's probably a good metaphor for it. You're never stable. Do you know what I mean? Because my one consistent thing throughout my whole journey through alcohol was 1 step forwards, 2 steps back, and that's what it felt like. So that instability creates all kinds of problems. So a habit change does take hard work, and other people are one of the biggest stumbling blocks after you stop. These people can drive you crazy. They want you to be, especially your old friends, want you to be your old self, because that's the way you fit in with their lives, with their picture. And sometimes, if you're trying to stop something like alcohol, there is no going back to that old life. There is no going back to that old self. So what are you going to do? Maybe there is no way of, even if it's something that you've done 10 years ago, maybe there is no way of reigniting those passions. Some things seem great in the moment, and then when you grow a bit or you do other things, when you're drinking, those 2 types, those 2 personalities are going to change. The personality you develop after you stop drinking alcohol, if you work on it, it's going to be a completely different personality to the person that you are when you're drinking. Your lights are going to be different. The people that you enjoy being with are going to be different. The behaviors that you enjoy participating in the way that you earn money, the way that you think, the way everything is going to change. It's one of the biggest fears, that people don't want to become somebody else apart from who they are. They don't want to be a different person, but that's just the way it is sometimes. Habit change, it just involves a lot of frame changes, a lot of mindset shifts, a lot of growth in different areas. And with all this happening, sometimes you change beyond your old self. What used to be entertaining when you were drinking is now boring. So, going back to the original question, how do you reignite old interests and old passions? Do you really want to do that? Is the first question you should be asking yourself. And if it's something that you want to do, then it's going to take time. It's not something that you can do overnight, because of the changes that have happened in you. And, again, it's one of these things that once you get into the journey, you will start rethinking things. The assumptions and the expectations that you have in the beginning are not going to be the same things that you have in 6 months' time if you're doing the work on yourself. So I hope that makes sense. Just get a drop of water. All right. The next one I want to talk about is pause. Pause, if you don't know about it, is post-alcohol withdrawal syndrome. And I say that like it's a thing, I call it prolonging alcoholism without any sense. right? This is a theory that is taken as fact. And for me, it's one of those things that is, it just prolongs this agony. It's good if you want to continue thinking that you're an alcoholic and you want to continue playing that victim card all the way through your life. For me, it's a bit like in the scene in The Godfather 3 where Al Pacino says, just as when I thought I was out, they dragged me back in. That's the mentality that this kind of thinking brings about. It's just prolonging that agony of, I'm an alcoholic, I'm something wrong with me. This is, why would you even think about this, from that perspective? And the biggest problem is that most people don't read scientific papers. And even if you do, you'll often find as many scientific papers disproving the idea that you want to adhere to, as there are papers that agree with your position, right? But most people don't look at scientific papers. They don't look underneath the hood. They look at their messaging from the media. And I don't know if you've noticed, in the last few years, probably the last couple, 2-3 decades, there is no such thing as journalistic integrity now. That's all gone. It's all about that instant gratification mentality, getting the quick buck and telling you whatever's going to achieve that end. So this is one of the reasons why I can never get on board. I never got on board with the AA, because they have that alcoholic for life mentality. That's what they preach. And for me, it's just a stupid idea, right? It's the same thing as stopping smoking and saying to yourself, well, no, I'm a smoker for life. I'm always going to be a smoker. I'm just one cigarette away from going back to and I'm sure if there is a Smokers Anonymous, that's what they preach. It's the same thing if you're obese and you lose the weight, that you continue to call yourself fat for life. From my perspective, I have the power in myself to do the changes that need to be made. I can change. There's plenty of people that told me I can't change in my life, but it's not right. So, once you stop drinking alcohol, it's got nothing to do with the alcohol anymore. As I said before, it's the mindset that you have. It's how you see the world. It's how you define the world. That needs to change. Einstein, I think it was, said that the definition of insanity, or something along these lines, said that the definition of insanity was looking at trying to solve a problem with the same state that caused it, the same thinking that caused it, the same thoughts, the same behaviors. The more you believe this stuff, the more you get caught up in this trap, and it affects everything about yourself. It affects how you view life. It affects how you view other people. It affects how you view yourself, which is the most important part. I focus on reality as much as I can, which means keeping my mind away from the bullshit as much as I can. We've got this thing in the program called the vigorous cycle. We talk about this a lot, and one of the things that is at the top of my list is being careful what you put inside your mind. We talk about alcohol from that perspective of being careful of what you put inside your body, but you also have to be careful of what you pollute your mind with. The kind of things that you put into your mind. And there's so much now. There's so many opportunities to ruin your own internal thinking ecosystem. So focus on reality. Don't focus on just theories. A lot of things are theories, and you can't help it. But look for the proof. Most people look at these things like pause as an excuse. They look at it as a reason why they're not achieving things. Like I said, it's that instant gratification mentality still. If you're not putting in the work in order to, if you get past day one and you think that everything's going to get better for you, then, then it's going to be maybe 6 months before you get a wake-up call and you think that nothing is happening. You've got to look at where the real reasons behind you not achieving things are in life, And I've gone through this, it's not, I've gone through made so many mistakes since I stopped. But at least since I stopped, it wasn't, as I said earlier on, that one step forwards, two steps back mentality. It's gone beyond that. So at least when I make mistakes, I understand why I made the mistake, or I try to find out why I made the mistake, and I try and at least educate myself on it. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 mistakes, to be honest, before you really get the lesson that you need to learn. But habit change is like that. Like I said, it takes hard work. It's complicated. It's messy. It's always going to be full of failures, and you have to learn from your failures. That's the only way that you can get through this. If you can't learn by your own failures, then a lot of people have failed and then they give up and they say, well, there's no point in doing it. But that's the only way that you learn. I mean, another great way is learning by other people's failures. That's why the forums are so good, listening to other people and their journeys and how they're going through their journeys. And you can learn that way. That's a smart way of doing it, right? So you don't have to go through the same things yourself if you're listening and if you're integrating those lessons inside yourself. But at the end of the day, it is down to that. It's work. Not in the sense of going out there and fucking beating your head against the wall and working for somebody else. I'm talking about working on yourself. And not because you've got this line in your head saying you're worth it. Like this crappy fucking commercials that are out there now. But because you believe that your life is worth it, because you believe that it's only through this effort, it's only through the effort that you put in for yourself that you're going to get the results that you want. So pause, pause and shite like pause, this idea is, it's going to keep you in that alcoholic mentality. It's going to keep you in the victim mindset. And more importantly, it's going to keep you away from focusing on the things that you should be focusing on. So there's a dual thing there, right? Remember, cause and effect, the opportunity cost. What you're focusing on means that you can't focus on something else that is as important or more important, right? Choices and trade-offs. So if you choose to believe pause, you're going to get pushed down this rabbit hole with all the other shite that entails. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, need some more water. Right, the next part of this video is going to be helping somebody else to quit drinking. Somebody else asked me this. I can't remember when it was, recently. But anyway, this is a question that I get quite a lot. It was actually I was reading an article for a video I'm doing on functioning alcoholic, and just that word and that notion of being a functioning alcoholic within the alcoholic mindset. And it was something that just rolled me up the wrong way about the way this person had written this article. Like helping somebody else was such an easy thing to do, or such a simple idea that all you have to do is tell somebody else that they've got a problem and hey presto, you're good to go, and it's such bullshit. And this was from an article from a reputable medical website, but what can you expect? Anyway, this one is how to help somebody else. The problem is that I don't think you can help somebody else, right? The only thing that somebody can do is to help themselves, right? And if you want any proof about this, then just look at your own journey through alcohol and ask yourself, how many times did you actually listen? I mean, when somebody says something to you, the instant reaction is going to always be one of defensiveness. You're defending yourself, you're defending your own life, you're defending your own ego, you're defending your own pride, whatever it is. That's the instant reaction. Maybe you think about it later on, and maybe enough people say it to you, and then you really start to think about it. But it's only really when you get consequences that are causing you enough pain that you really decide to change. So if you didn't listen to somebody who's telling you, what did it make you think about them, and why would you expect anyone else to listen to you in the same thing? Most of our trying to change the world happens when you first stop drinking alcohol. There's so many people that get it into their heads that they want other people to stop drinking alcohol. Mostly when I did it, it was because I didn't want to see alcohol around me. So that was the motivation for me. I sort of got up on my soapbox. I'm still doing it in this form, but hopefully I'm listening to people who are wanting to stop, or at least contemplating stopping. This was to people, to my family, to Esther at the beginning. She didn't want to listen to me, and people get sick of it. But it is because it's from a personal point of view, I think, that you just don't want to see the alcohol around you. But the problem is at the beginning that you've got no experience to back it up. So what you're saying is just completely, it's just the same stuff that's going out over and over. But like I say, most people are in denial. One of the biggest questions that I used to get when I told people that I didn't drink, because at the beginning we were still doing the same thing. We were going to the pub. It was the only place we could watch football. We didn't have couldn't watch the football in our own house, so we had to go to the pub, and then going to restaurants with people, old friends that we used to drink with. So we tried to do this. I tried to do this for several months after I stopped. The big question was, or when I stopped, or I said to people I'd stopped drinking alcohol, was, you don't drink? What do you do? And that says everything about them. It says everything about the habit. It says everything about the alcohol. And most people then immediately go into a defensive thing and say, oh, well, I don't drink that much myself, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, that it's one of those things. The same thing when I told people I wasn't eating meat anymore, what do you eat? Like, that was the only thing there, One of those things. But watch people when they're drinking, when you don't drink. It becomes one of those things that you start to see the drug in the alcohol. You stop seeing the alcohol for the wine. You stop seeing the wine and the beer and all this kind of stuff, and you start seeing people, the reactions. You start seeing the poisoning of people. You start seeing the brainlessness of it. The depressing attitude. People try to disguise it, but it's one of those things that under the influence of a drug, it's sort of, they go in waves up and down, this wave of being lively and trying to be lively, and then going down and stuff. So but the only way that you can really help somebody else is if they're already open to learning. People who are watching these videos, they're open to learning. Even people who make the mistakes over and over again, they're still open to learning, and they're the people that you can teach. They're the people that you can help. Alcohol itself, stopping drinking alcohol, can be a polarizing thing. Like, there's so much polarizing happening nowadays, but it's always been a polarizing thing. Those who think of themselves as victims of alcohol, and those who don't. Those who see alcohol as a lifetime problem, as an internal problem, as a problem with their DNA, a problem with their upbringing, whatever. And those who don't, people that think they have power over alcohol, and those who don't, right? So look at your own motivations first. If you're trying to help somebody else, just look at what it is. Is it them or you're trying to help? If somebody doesn't want to change, they're not going to change. They won't change, and you can actually set somebody back, because it can make them more firm in their own position of drinking. I'm not saying that you can never say anything. I think, like I said, if you've got the more people that are saying something to these people, even just one-off comments, but it always comes off better. There's an old quote in Ireland which is, nothing as pure as a reformed whore. And it's the same thing here. People who have stopped drinking, they come across as being, you sort of reformed, and you're trying to change everyone else. So there's always an excuse if somebody doesn't want to change. So anyway, that's that one for that one. The final part today I wanted to do was just about stopping drinking alcohol versus breaking the habit. We've spoken about this a little bit throughout this video. There's a big difference, as I said in the beginning, between the actual stopping the drinking and getting that out of your life and breaking the habit. Stopping drinking alcohol happens overnight, but the habit itself takes a long time to break. It's a dynamic process, so it's not like you get a hold of the habit one day and you snap it and that's it, it's done. It just happens over a gradual period of time. It's something that can't be rushed. It's a lot of the stuff that you're talking about with habit change is you're dealing with things that are unconscious. So you've got to be realistic about how long it's going to take you, how long it's going to take you for the different aspects of your habit to be dealt with. There are different aspects, by the way. This is not one. We look at it as a huge, big one habit that is, but there's so many different. I look at it like I don't know if you've ever seen the Matrix movies, and there's these things called I can't remember what they're called now, the Sentinels, and they've got all these tendrils for attacking the ships, I think it was. But anyway, that's what your habit is like. It's just got all these different, like an octopus, and you've got to gradually just undo these suckers, and change it from that perspective. But like I say, a lot of it is in the subconscious, and you have to bring a lot of that stuff up into the your conscious awareness before you can tackle it. You can't tackle anything that's down there. 95% of the stuff in your life is in your subconscious. So it's a process that is going to take a long time. Like I said, stopping drinking alcohol is very simple. You know what to do. There's one simple choice that you make. To stop drinking alcohol, you don't put it into your mouth, and that's it, period. There is nothing more complicated than that. But the habits themselves are much more complex. Now, whether you're talking about a drinking habit, a smoking habit, think about all the thinking that goes into the habit, all the behaviors that go into it. And the more you drink, the more your thinking revolves around it, the more your behaviors get sucked into it. All those tendrils. So knowledge is power. It's understanding yourself, having knowledge about your own self is the most powerful thing. Having knowledge about your own self, having knowledge about your own problem, because everybody's problem is different. A habit is such a generalized word that means fuck all when you look at it. It's basically it's like a collective of behaviors and thoughts and ideas that you've got in your head. That is your habit. Nobody else's habit looks the same way as yours. So, even though I can say, well, these are the areas that you've got to look in, this is the area that you've got to look in, these are the thoughts that you should be looking at. It's so complicated, and at the same time, like I said before, it's so messy. The habit to be built up in a certain way is full of failures, just as the way it's the same thing you're going to have when you're breaking it down. So, you've got to learn from all of that as well. It's all trial and error. Breaking the habit is trying to move forwards, trying this thing, experimenting. There's taking on the failures in your life. Remember that when you take a habit out, when you get rid of a habit in your life, you can't live in a vacuum. You have to fill that gap with something. And what most people do is they try replace like with like. So they try and replace the drinking with something else, And that's why you hear so many people going, oh, well, if I stop smoking, if I stop drinking, maybe I can start smoking marijuana, and that's the thing that I can do, And it's disastrous thinking, because it's going to leave you down the same path. You're not changing the interior stuff. You're not changing the thing that got you into the problem in the first place. So remember, it's always going to take hard work. It's always going to be there with you, having to be aware of things and to go through your failures. make your mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and then move on and keep doing that over and over again. I mean, my biggest thing is, as we say, get into the best possible version of yourself, living the best possible life that you can live. And that doesn't happen by chance. It doesn't happen just because you stop doing one thing. You know, stopping doing one thing is a negative